I used to think family was everything, that no matter how cruel the world became outside our front door, at home I'd find warmth, love, and understanding. But the truth is sometimes the deepest wounds aren't inflicted by strangers. They come from the people who are supposed to love you unconditionally. And in my case, the sharpest blade came from my own mother. My name is Leela. I'm 32 years old now, but the story I'm about to tell you still feels raw, as though it happened yesterday. For as long as I can remember, my mother Farah saw me less as a daughter and more as a disappointment. Growing up, I was the middle child between two brothers, Adil, the golden boy who could do no wrong, and Samir, the youngest, the baby of the family who everyone adored. And me. I was just there. Not the smartest, not the prettiest, not the most ambitious. At least, that's how she made me feel. I'd hear little remarks at the dinner table. Layla, maybe if you studied as hard as Adil, you wouldn't struggle with your grades. Or during Eid gatherings when relatives praised my cousin's outfits. My mother would cut in with, Leela doesn't really care about style. Do you? As though my worth was measured by clothes and eyeliner. These weren't one-off comments. They were constant. Little jabs, subtle reminders that I was less. And no matter how much I tried, whether it was excelling in art, cooking, or simply being kind, none of it seemed to matter. But things became unbearable after my father passed away. My dad had always been my shield. It's the one who would quietly squeeze my hand under the table when my mother's words stung too much. He'd whisper later, "Don't listen to her, Leela. You're stronger than you think." When he died suddenly of a heart attack, the fragile balance in our household shattered. Without him, there was no buffer between my mother's sharp tongue and my fragile self-worth. I moved back into the family house after the funeral because my mother said she needed me. At least, that's how she framed it. But what she really needed was someone to cook, clean, and manage the endless chores she didn't want to handle. Day after day, I became the unpaid maid of the family. Adil had married and moved out, but still visited often with his smug wife, whom my mother adored. Samir was in university, but every time he came home, he was treated like a prince. And me. I was expected to serve. Leela, why is dinner late again? Leela, your brother's laundry hasn't been done. Leela, you should help Adil's wife more. She has a job, unlike you. That last part always stung the most. Because I did have a job freelance graphic design from home. But to her, it didn't count unless I dressed in heels and left the house every morning like Adil. I tried to brush it off. I told myself she was grieving and that maybe her bitterness was just her way of coping. But years passed and nothing changed. Worse, she seemed to thrive on comparing me to everyone else. When our relatives gathered, she'd loudly boast about Adil's promotions or Samir's scholarships. Then, almost as an afterthought, she'd gesture toward me and say something like, "And Layla?" Well, she helps around the house. I can still remember one winter night when I sat with her in the living room. I had just finished working on a client's project that paid me more than I'd ever earned before. Excited? I told her mom. I just closed a project worth $5,000. She didn't even look up from the TV. That's nice. But it's not stable. You should find a real job. Don't get your hopes up. I felt my throat close up. The pride I had built inside me crumbled in seconds. My inner thoughts at that moment were a swirl of anger and despair. Why do I even bother sharing good news with her? Why do I keep hoping she finally says she's proud of me? But I stayed silent, swallowing my hurt, because arguing with her was like shouting into the void. The years blurred together like that me, shrinking smaller and smaller, while she grew louder and more controlling. Then came the incident that set everything in motion. My birthday. Birthdays in our family were always a big deal. Cakes, decorations, everyone gathered around the dining table. For Adil's birthday, Mom would invite half the neighborhood, order catering, and shower him with gifts. For Samir, she'd bake his favorite cake days in advance and decorate the house with balloons. For me, it was always muted. A simple happy birthday and maybe a store-bought cake, she remembered. But this year, I told myself maybe it would be different. I had been saving up to throw my own little celebration, invite a few cousins, maybe even buy myself something nice. When the day arrived, I decorated the dining room myself with fairy lights and flowers. I cooked a full dinner, roasted chicken, biryani, even baked a cake from scratch. I wanted to create the warmth I'd always craved. Family members arrived slowly, Adil and his wife Samir, some cousins. Everyone seemed impressed with the spread. I thought maybe tonight will finally feel like I belong. But then, as we all sat down to eat, my mother stood up to make a toast. She clinked her glass and said with a smirk I'll never forget, "You know, Leela asked for a birthday gift this year. But honestly, the best gift she could give us would be leaving this house and finding her own place. Maybe then she'll finally grow up." The room went silent. My cousins shifted uncomfortably. Adil chuckled under his breath. Samir looked down at his plate. And me, I felt my entire body flush with humiliation. I forced a shaky laugh, pretending it was a joke. But inside, my heart was shattering. Her words echoed in my head. The best gift would be leaving. And that's when something inside me shifted. I realized I had spent my entire life begging for scraps of love from a woman who would never give it. That night, as I lay awake staring at the ceiling, one thought consumed me. If leaving is the best gift, then maybe it's time she gets that gift. But not the way she expects. Because one day soon, it wouldn't be me packing my bags. It would be her. When the laughter didn't come, the clink of cutlery tried to pretend it did. Plates shifted, spoons tapped porcelain. Someone coughed. The fairy lights I'd hung in the dining room hummed softly. Like they were the only things brave enough to make noise after my mother's toast. I stared at the rose gold banner I'd taped above the sideboard. Happy birthday, Lee Litz. Cheerful letters mocking me. I'd ironed the tablecloth, polished the mismatched silverware, coordinated napkins with the warm-toned runner. It all looked beautiful, and I felt uglier by the second. "Mom," I said, trying to steady my voice. "That was a joke, right?" Farah smoothed her dupatta and set her glass down delicately, like I was a stain she didn't want to touch. "Leela, Beta, don't be so sensitive. It's time you think about your future." "You're 32? Adil snorted into his water. His wife, Hira, covered the sound with a cough that fooled no one. "She's right," Hira said brightly. "Independence can be empowering." "Empowering," I echoed. I could feel the laugh getting caught somewhere in my throat. Empowering, like getting shoved out of a moving car, I thought. Samir kept his eyes glued to his plate, scooping rice with mechanical precision. He would glance up at me, then quickly retreat. A bystander to a car crash he couldn't stop and wouldn't own. Cousin Sarah shifted in her seat next to me. Auntie Farah probably meant, "You know, starting a new chapter," she mumbled. She squeezed my knee under the table. I didn't know she wanted to comfort me or pin me to my chair so I wouldn't run. I forced a smile that tasted like tin. New chapter, right? My mother's eyes sparkled the way they did when she announced a sale at the fabric store. Triumph wrapped in domestic concern. Exactly. "You've been lingering," she said, selecting the word like an herb to sprinkle. "This house has too many memories for you. Your father's passing." She paused, pulling the grief card like an ace. "Maybe you need a blank slate." I set my fork down. "So the best birthday gift I can give you is to leave." Adil shrugged. "It's not that deep, Layla. We're just saying you need to be practical. You can't live here forever." I never said forever. Hira lifted an eyebrow. "But you've been here 3 years?" "It's for my mother," corrected gently, a tiny knife sliding between ribs. I've swallowed. The biryani I'd made a perfect blend of saffron and caramelized onions had turned to sand in my mouth. I'd wanted tonight to be warm, a little sanctuary where I could be good enough for my own family. Instead, I was a problem to be solved with a moving truck. Adil reached for the salad. "Anyway, Eamon's school admissions are happening, so we need that back room to store some things. Lots of paperwork, you know." The back room. My father's study. My work desk. The only space in the house that held my breath without squeezing it. The room where his sweater still hung behind the door. And when I was alone, I'd bury my face in the sleeve and pretend he was telling me to breathe. "Store some things," I repeated. "In Baba's room." My mother waved a hand. "Don't dramatize." We'll clean it out. You can put your computer in your bedroom. Or take it with you." She smiled as if she were offering me a slice of cake. Hira's voice was bright again, the kind of brightness that stings your eyes. "You could try Kaleving. So popular now. Or what is it? Women's hostels. Very safe, very modern." Something inside me snapped a thin wire I hadn't realized was keeping me upright. I saw it clearly then. All the times I had made myself small to fit inside my mother's idea of a good daughter. All the times I'd swallowed my protests and smiled because it was easier than being called ungrateful. "Excuse me," I said. I pushed my chair back. The leg caught the carpet and screeched, a wounded sound that made everyone flinch. I walked to the kitchen and leaned against the counter, palms pressed to the cold marble. My chest rose and fell like I'd been running. I stared at the cake I'd baked, pearl sugar sprinkles neat as stars, frosting smooth and proud. "Happy 32, Leela piped by my own shaky hands. I thought of the hours I'd spent beating eggs just right. 'Cause if I did everything just right, maybe they'd love me right back. I heard footsteps behind me, Samir. He hovered at the threshold like a child who'd walked into the wrong classroom. "Layla," he whispered. "Don't take it like that." How else should I take it? I didn't turn. He rubbed the back of his neck. "You know how Mom is? She says stuff she doesn't mean it like that." I turned then, and the kitchen seemed too bright. She meant exactly what she said. You all did. Samir's eyes darted to the dining room. "Can you just come back? For me?" Funny how everyone wanted me to be somewhere for them, but never for me. I took a breath that wobbled and steadied. "I'll come back," I said. For the cake. We returned and the performance resumed. Forks lifting, jokes forced. I cut the cake and held the first slice toward my mother out of habit. "For the birthday girl," she teased, refusing it. "Calories," she whispered conspiratorially to Hira. I set it on a plate for Sarah, hands still. My mother leaned toward Adil. "So, Beta, when are you and Hira showing us the new flat design? We should throw a housewarming soon," she said, loudly enough for me to hear the emphasis on new and flat and housewarming. Adil grinned. "Soon we're thinking of making a play area for Amin with a mini slide." A slide. My mother gushed. "In your own home. Isn't that amazing, Layla? When you have your own home, you can do that too." In that moment, what I felt wasn't even anger. It was clarity. A glass of water so still you see the bottom. I watched their mouths move, words about curtains and consultants and color palettes. Watched Hero's manicure flash like little flags of victory. Watched my mother's eyes cut to me like measuring tape. And I decided that I would never, ever stand in this room powerless again. But first, I had to survive the rest of the night. Speech. Cousin Danish called, too loudly. "Leela, say something. It's your day." A murmur of assent swept the table. It felt like a dare. My mother's smile tightened. She hadn't planned for me to talk. I stood, fingers laced together so they wouldn't shake. My heart banged on the inside of my ribs like it wanted to be let out. "Thank you for being here," I began. The safe words, the ones that mean nothing and offend no one. "I'm grateful." I looked at each of them. At Adil leaning back with lazy entitlement. At Hira, a queen in her own mind. At Samir, shrinking. At my mother, her chin lifted that fraction of a degree that always meant she was bracing for disobedience. "Birthdays are funny," I said. "They are supposed to be about being loved into the world. But sometimes they're about learning who would prefer you were never born at all." My voice didn't crack. I don't know how. "Leela," my mother warned softly. "Enough drama," I smiled. "Right? No drama. Just truth." Leela, Adil groaned. "Come on, no," I said, and the word was a door clicking shut. "I won't make a speech. Not tonight." I sat down. The room exhaled in relief, like I'd put a baby back in its crib. The rest of the evening moved forward with the jerky rhythm of a bad film. People ate. People talked. My mother made sure everyone left with leftovers she could brag about. I cooked so much. I packed up containers in silence, cleaning the kitchen I'd turned into a feast. Sierra stayed to help, and for a second I let her kindness brush my shoulder. Then she left too, with a sorry smile that said, "I won't choose you over your mother." At the door, my mother kissed my cheek perfunctorily. "You took the joke out of context," she said. "A parting gift," and slipped into bed like a queen into silk. I went to the back room, Baba's room, and shut the door behind me. The desk lamp cast a halo over the walnut, warming the space he'd loved. I opened the bottom drawer and pulled out the old leather-bound journal I'd found weeks after he died. I had never told anyone about it. It wasn't a diary. It was more like a ledger of love. Notes about savings, about insurance, typed and taped. Letters to me, to Adil, to Samir, written in his slanted script, tucked between monthly budgets and grocery lists. Advice and forethought threaded together the way only my father could, practical and tender. I traced my finger over his handwriting. "Leela Mian," he had written on one page. "One day you will have to stand up for yourself. When that day comes, know that my voice is the spine of yours. Use it." I closed my eyes and felt him rise around me like a tide. The door knocked. It didn't open. Mother, she never entered this room anymore. She said the smell of old paper made her sneeze. I slipped the journal back and turned the lock. "Leela." Her voice floated through wood. "Don't make tomorrow awkward. We promised a deal we'd help them finalize the baby's school. We're having a small brunch here for the consultant." Brunch, of course. My humiliation wasn't done. It had an encore. With an audience. "I'll be there," I said. My voice was even. It terrified me how even it was. "Good," she replied, and her footsteps receded down the corridor like a clock rewinding. I didn't sleep. I watched the bruise-shaped shadows crawl across the ceiling, and I made a plan. It didn't have edges yet. It was smoke. But it moved with purpose. By morning, the house smelled of cardamom and ghee. My mother had tied her hair back in that severe bun she wore when she wanted to impress professionals. She wore a sari she saved for good company and draped it just so, like a flag on a fort she planned to defend. Hira arrived at 9 with her laptop and bullet points in her voice. Adil had a folder thick enough to choke a tree. Samir stumbled in late. Hermas looked at me and looked away. The consultant was a woman in her 40s, crisp and friendly, with a voice that sounded like the ring of a glass. Her name was Meenal. She sat at our dining table like the room belonged to her, nodded approvingly at the layout, at the sunlight. At the framed black and white photo of my parents on the sideboard. "Oh, wow," Meenal said, pausing at a canvas prop near the window. "Is that yours?" It was a digital illustration I'd printed and mounted for Baba's room, our neighborhood street in Monsoon. Colors melted together like memory. "Yes," I said, taken off guard. "It's beautiful. Do you sell your work?" I opened my mouth, but my mother's laugh beat me to it. "She plays with pictures," she said, waving a dismissive hand. "It's just a hobby." Minel blinked. "It looks professional." "She's trying," my mother continued, a sweetness sliding in just to burn on the way down. "But we are focusing on the important things now, Min's future." I felt the old heat rise, that stinging at the back of my eyes that told me I was about to make a choice, swallow or speak. I looked at Baba's photo. He was captured mid-laugh, head tilted, as if he'd just heard the best joke. "My voice is the spine of yours." The memory snapped into place like a puzzle piece finding home. "Actually," I said, and everyone looked up, annoyed that the furniture had begun to talk. "I do sell my work, and I have clients. Big ones." "Leela," my mother said, warning plain. "Not now." I met Mino's eyes. "I'm a freelance designer. I manage brand identities, digital campaigns, editorial illustrations. I've done packaging design for a boutique tea company. I worked on a rebrand for a local bakery. I did a digital mural for a cafe in Goulburg." Minel smiled genuinely. "That's wonderful." "Freelance," Adil said, like he tasted a bad olive. "So, unstable." "Fluid," I corrected. "Adaptive." My mother clucked her tongue. "Stop indulging her." "Meinl G, about the school forms, actually." Meinl interrupted. "I love that you're a designer. Layla, it's helpful for the school application. They value creative family environments." Hira lit up. Oh, then we can say Aman is exposed to arts because his aunt doodles designs, I said. My mother leaned forward, smile stretched. Yes, yes, our Leela is very artistic. But we're trying to help her find a place of her own. She's ready to leave the nest. She rested her hand on mine, a soft press that felt like a pin. Aren't you, Beta? The humiliation burned a new stripe across my chest, that she could turn even my pride into a prop for her narrative. I could taste the iron in my mouth again. Not this time. I'm not the one leaving, I said. Silence pooled. Even the ceiling fan seemed to hold its breath. Excuse me, my mother whispered, the air cooling around the syllables. Leela Adil barked. Don't create a scene. I stood. The room tilted and steadied. No scene. Just story. Since we're sharing plans today. Minna looked between us, confusion knitting her brows. Hira's lips parted in eager horror. Samir closed his eyes. I'm not leaving, I said again. Slower you are. My mother laughed, a sound like a shoe slipping on tile. I think you're tired, she said, voice sugar. Sit, we'll get you tea. No, you told me last night the best gift I could give you was leaving. You wanted a gift? I pointed to the back room. Baba left you one. Color drained from her face so fast I thought she'd been painted. Leela, she said, wait on my name. Not here. Why not? The courage surprised me. It felt like stepping into sunlight after years in a basement. You wanted an audience last night. You picked my birthday for your announcement. Today I pick brunch. Adil slapped his hand on the table. Enough. No, I said, and I could hear Baba's voice underneath mine, like harmony. Baba knew you would do this. He knew you, Mom. He left instructions. He left ownership. I inhaled. Of this house. Adil laughed, a short, cruel bark. Ownership. Don't be ridiculous. The house is in Mom's name. Temporarily, I said. Baba transferred it to a family trust after his first heart scare. He left the trust to us equally. There are conditions. You know, sensible things. If a beneficiary is emotionally abusive or financially exploitative to another beneficiary, their right to live in the property can be suspended by the trustee. I held his eye. Care to guess who the trustee is? My mother's eyes narrowed to bright slits. What nonsense are you, Uncle Imran? I said. Baba's cousin. The lawyer. The name dropped into the room like a stone into a still pond, sending ripples through every face. Imran had been the quiet shadow at every family crisis, taking notes, refusing tea, asking for signatures. No one liked him. Everyone feared him. Hira recovered first. Even if that were true, which it isn't, how would you prove? What did you say? Abuse? That's such a big word, Layla. I pulled my phone from my pocket. My fingers didn't shake. For once, you did the work for me, I said quietly. All these years, your jokes, your comments, your little speeches. You love an audience. Baba's room has had a security camera installed since the burglaries on our street. Did you ever wonder why the Wi-Fi sometimes slows down? Because it's cloud-backed. Audio too. And last night, Mom's toast. Crystal clear. My mother's breath hitched. It was tiny, but I heard it. You recorded me. You performed, I said. I kept the playbill. Adil stood. Turn that off. Sit down, I snapped, and the shock on his face sustained me. I already sent everything to Uncle Imran this morning, along with a formal request to convene a trust meeting. There'll be a preliminary hearing within the week. Meinl stood up, flustered. I'm so sorry, maybe I should know, my mother said sharply, grabbing at dignity like a dropped scarf. You will sit. She turned to me, face composed by force. You ungrateful child. After everything I've done for you, you did nothing for me, I said. You did everything to me. The words felt like a release valve. The room was different after them, softened at the edges, as though the furniture had moved a few inches on its own. Hira's voice went brittle. This is blackmail. It's boundaries. Adil's jaw flexed. We'll fight this. Fight, I said. But here's the thing. You can't erase what you said. You can't erase years of belittling documented in group chats, in voice notes. In the way you paraded my failures like party favors. I looked at my mother. You said the best gift I could give you would be leaving. I'm regifting. Her mouth opened, closed. For once, Farah had no words to varnish her intentions. Minal cleared her throat gently. Perhaps we should reschedule, she said, gathering her files. No one argued. The door closed behind her with the finality of a judge's gavel. We stood in a triangle. My mother, Adil, me. Hira and Samir were satellites, caught in our gravity, unable to break orbit. I won't leave my home, my mother said at last, quiet and deadly. You won't be homeless, I said. The trust allows for alternate residence while issues are investigated. Adil has a new flat, doesn't he? Play area and all. For now, you can. Be empowered. Adil's face flushed. You can't. I already did. I placed a sealed envelope on the dining table, the same table she'd used to feed us, to starve me, to crown and crucify. A copy of the notice. Uncle Imran will be in touch. My mother stared at it like it might explode, then back at me as if searching for the girl who used to say sorry for everything. She didn't find her. This is your birthday tantrum, she spat. You'll regret it. Maybe, I said. But maybe I've been the only one regretting anything in this house for 4 years. Time to share. She straightened her sorry pleats with trembling fingers. I'm still your mother. You are, I said softly, and you taught me everything I need, what I won't accept, what love isn't. Consider this. My thank you. Hira snatched the envelope and shoved it into her tote. Let's go, she hissed to Adil. He hesitated, then followed, the king obeying the scene change. Samir lingered, looking like a boy who'd lost his backpack. He whispered Layla. Did Baba really? Yes, I said. He saved us from the worst versions of ourselves. He hoped he wouldn't have to use it. But he knew. Samir's eyes filled. I'm sorry, he said, and I believed he meant it. Then be different, I replied. That's all. He nodded and left, closing the door gently, as if the house might shatter. My mother didn't move. The light caught on the curve of her cheek, on the diamond stud in her nose. She looked suddenly small, like a woman playing dress-up in authority. You hate me, she said, not a question. I ache because of you, I answered. That's not the same thing. We stood there, 2 women stripped of roles, and the silence felt like a third person who finally had something to say. She lifted her chin. You won't win, she whispered. I already did, I said. And I didn't mean legal papers or recorded audio. I meant the way my voice didn't shake anymore. I meant the way the house no longer owned me. She gathered her purse, the movement jerky, and walked to the door. At the threshold, she paused. You're cruel. Only because you taught me sharpness, I said. I'm softer than you think. That's why this is happening. The door closed. I waited for the old panic to flood back, the dread of consequences. It didn't. The quiet pressed around me like a new skin. I walked to the back room, Baba's room, and sat at the desk. The journal waited. I opened to a random page. Me, Jan, it said in his slant. When the moment arrives, be ready to feel everything. Then do the thing anyway. I let myself feel it, the ache, the rage, the small child inside me who had just watched her mother leave a room she'd once ruled. Tears came hot and clean. They didn't drown me. They washed. In the next room, the fairy lights still glowed in daylight. My birthday banner sagged at one corner. I walked over and fixed the tape, smoothing the crease from the H. The banner lifted, bright again. I cut myself a slice of cake and carried it to the table. The house hummed with a new electricity. Or maybe it was just my blood learning a new rhythm. Happy birthday, Layla, I said aloud. And then, with a small, fierce smile I hadn't worn in years, I took a bite when the brunch ended and the last polite guest had scurried out with excuses. The house felt like it had been drained of oxygen. The air was thick, the silence heavy. My mother had retreated to her room, slamming the door so hard that a picture frame rattled in the hallway. Adil and Hira had stormed off in a flurry of indignation, while Samir had slipped out quietly, murmuring something about clearing his head. I was left alone with the hum of the refrigerator and the faint echo of my own words. Not the one leaving. You are. I should have felt victorious. But instead, a strange unease coiled in my chest. Because deep down, I knew what was coming next. My mother wasn't the kind of woman to take humiliation quietly. She was the kind who sharpened her anger and aimed it like an arrow. And I was about to find out just how sharp she could be. That evening, as the sky bruised purple and the call to prayer drifted across the neighborhood, there was a knock at the door. Not the hesitant knock of family. No. This was firm, official. I opened the door to find Uncle Imran himself standing there, briefcase in hand, his expression unreadable. He wasn't the sort of man you hugged or welcomed with chatter. He carried a silence around him that made people clear a path. "Leela," he said, adjusting his glasses. "We need to talk." I led him inside. My mother appeared almost instantly, her sari now replaced by a plain cotton shalwar kameez, her hair loose. She looked less like the queen of the house and more like a woman cornered in her own castle. "Imran Bhai," she said, her tone honeyed. "You shouldn't have come without calling." "I was in the area," he replied simply, setting his briefcase on the table. He looked at me. "I received your email this morning." I nodded, my palms slick, and he opened the case, pulled out a folder, and slid it onto the table. My mother snatched it up, flipping through the pages. I watched her face pale as her eyes skimmed over Baba's signature. The trust documents, the stipulations spelled out in black ink. "This is ridiculous," she snapped, slamming the folder shut. "Shaukat would never." "He did." Imran interrupted, his voice steady. "I drew up the papers myself. He wanted to ensure fairness for all 3 children." My heart squeezed at his words. All 3 children. For once, I wasn't invisible. My mother's hands trembled as she pointed a finger at me. "She's manipulating you. She's always been weak, always seeking pity. Now she wants to throw me out of my own house." I opened my mouth, but Imran raised a hand. "Farah, this isn't about pity. It's about responsibility. The trust is clear. If there is evidence of emotional abuse, the trustee may reassign residence rights." Her laugh was brittle, desperate. "Emotional abuse. What abuse?" I raised her. I fed her. I clothed her. "And you belittled me," I said softly. "You humiliated me in front of family. You made me feel like a burden in my own home." My mother's head whipped toward me, eyes blazing. "Ungrateful girl. Everything I did was for your good. Calling me useless. Telling me my best gift would be leaving. Was that for my good?" Her face tightened, the fury barely contained. But before she could respond, Imran placed another document on the table. "Layla submitted audio recordings," he said calmly. "I've reviewed them. They leave little doubt." My mother froze. The blood drained from her face. You recorded me?" she whispered, her voice cracking for the first time. I swallowed hard, guilt pricking at me. "I didn't want to. But you never listened when I told you you were hurting me. I needed proof." For the first time in my life, I saw her falter. Not with rage, not with scorn, but with fear. Her hand gripped the edge of the table, knuckles white. "You're siding with her." She hissed at Imran over me. "Over your own cousin's widow." Imran's gaze was unflinching. "I'm siding with what Shaukat wanted. And he wanted fairness. He wanted peace for his children." Silence fell, heavy and suffocating. That's when Samir walked in, his face pale, his eyes wide. He must have heard enough, because he looked at me with a mixture of shock and guilt. "Leela, is this true?" he asked quietly. I nodded. He turned to our mother, Amy. Her lips trembled, but no words came. And in that moment, Samir saw it. He saw the truth I had lived with for years. The truth I had carried alone. He stammered. "I never realized. I thought you were just strict." Strict. That word lodged in my throat. Strict was making sure your child did their homework. Strict was setting boundaries. Strict was not systematically crushing their spirit until they believed they were worthless. My mother finally found her voice, low and venomous. So now even you turn against me. My youngest, my baby. Samir's jaw clenched. I'm not turning against you, Amy. I'm just seeing clearly for once. Her eyes filled with tears, real or crafted. I couldn't tell. Everything I did because I loved you. Because I wanted the best for you. No, I whispered, my chest tight. You wanted the best for a deal. You wanted obedience from Samir. And from me, you wanted silence. She looked at me then, truly looked at me, as if seeing me for the first time. And for a flicker of a second, I thought I saw regret. But it vanished as quickly as it came, swallowed by pride. Imran cleared his throat. The decision will be formalized in writing. Farah, you'll need to arrange alternate residence within 30 days. Until then, you may stay here, but Leela will have equal authority in the household. Her face hardened. You think you've won? She spat at me. You think this makes you strong? I held her gaze, my voice steady. No, it doesn't make me strong. It makes me free. That night, I lay in Baba's room with his journal open on my lap. My hands trembled as I traced his words. One day, the truth will be your weapon. Don't be afraid to use it. And for the first time in my life, I believed him. Because this wasn't just about me leaving anymore. This was about her facing the mirror she had avoided all her life. And the twist of it, all the revelation was that the house she had tried to push me out of wasn't hers to rule anymore. It was mine, ours, and she was the one being pushed out. I had imagined this moment in Peace's revenge, like shards of glass glinting in my mind. But the reality was stranger, heavier, more exhausting than I thought. When Uncle Imran left that night, the house became a battlefield divided by silence. My mother stopped speaking to me. She passed me in hallways with narrowed eyes as if sheer contempt could burn me out of existence. At first, I thought the silence might be a relief. But silence has weight. It pressed on me like a ceiling about to collapse. Samir tiptoed around us, guilt written all over his face, while Adil avoided the house altogether. And me? I clung to Baba's journal like a lifeline. The 30-day deadline ticked closer. Imran's letter of intent arrived by courier, official and brutal in its phrasing. Beneficiary rights suspended pending review of conduct. My mother read it at the dining table, her face flushed with fury. Then she tore the letter in half, as if paper could undo law. You think you're so clever, she sneered at me. You think Imran is your savior? But this is still my house. I looked her in the eye, steady. Not anymore. She slapped the table so hard the plates rattled. Ungrateful girl. I carried you for 9 months, and this is how you repay me. By dragging me into the dirt. I almost flinched. Almost, but then Baba's words whispered back to me. Be ready to feel everything. Then do the thing anyway. I didn't drag you, I said. You walked yourself there. Her glare was pure venom. But for once, it didn't kill me. It bounced off like arrows against armor. The final blow came during a family gathering 2 weeks later. It wasn't planned, at least not by me. Fate has a way of arranging scenes for maximum drama. It was my cousin Danish's engagement party. The entire extended family was invited. A big hall, lights strung across the ceiling like stars. Buffet tables groaning under the weight of biryani kebabs and trays of sweets. I almost didn't go. I didn't want to face the whispers. But Samir begged me. Please, he said. If you don't show up, they'll believe Mom's version of the story. Her version. I could already imagine it. That I was manipulative. That I was ungrateful. That I had poisoned Baba's memory against her. So I went. I wore a simple navy dress, one of the few that made me feel like myself. As I entered the hall, I felt the hush ripple through the room. Relatives glanced at me, then at my mother, then back at me. Some offered polite smiles, others leaned in to whisper behind henna-painted hands. My mother arrived shortly after, wrapped in a shimmering green, chin high, her expression carefully composed. Adil and Hira flanked her like bodyguards. She didn't look at me once. I told myself I could survive the night if I stayed quiet, if I blended into the background. But of course, that wasn't how fate worked. It happened when Uncle Imran arrived. His presence was like a thunderclap. The whispers turned into murmurs. Everyone knew he was the family's lawyer, the keeper of secrets, and everyone knew something was brewing. He greeted a few relatives, then walked straight to me. "Leela," he said warmly, shaking my hand. "Good to see you." Every eye in the room turned toward us. My mother's smile faltered for the briefest second. Then she glided over, her sorry shimmering under the lights. "Imran Bai," she said sweetly. "I didn't expect you here." "I'm family," he replied evenly. "And I'm also here on business." The room stilled. Forks paused midair. Even the music seemed too quiet. "Business," my mother repeated, her voice thin. Imran nodded. "The trust review has concluded." My stomach tightened. This was it. He pulled a small stack of documents from his briefcase and spoke loudly enough for everyone nearby to hear. "Farah, effective immediately. Your residential rights to Shawkat's property are suspended. You are required to vacate within 14 days. Gasps rippled through the hall. Someone muttered, "Astagfirullah." My mother's face drained of color. "Here, you're announcing this here." Imran's gaze was steady. Transparency was Shawkat's wish. He wanted fairness to be visible, not whispered about. My mother turned, her eyes locking on me. "You did this. You couldn't keep it private too, had to shame me in front of everyone." The words stung, but I stood my ground. "You shamed me all my life, Amy. At dinners, at birthdays, at every chance you got. You loved an audience. Now you have one." The room buzzed with shock. Adil shot to his feet. "This is outrageous. My mother will not be thrown out like trash." Imran didn't flinch. "She's not being thrown out. She will be given alternate housing as per the trust stipulations. But she can no longer hold authority in the family home." Here I hissed, "This is humiliation." "Yes," I said, my voice ringing louder than I intended. "And do you know how it feels to be humiliated by your own family? To be told you're worthless, useless, unwanted? I do. And now, for once, so does she." The words hung in the air like thunder. My mother's lip trembled, her eyes filling with tears. She looked around the hall, but no one came to her defense. Not even Samir. He stood beside me, silent. His presence a quiet shield. "Finally," she whispered, "you'll regret this." I took a deep breath, my heart pounding, and replied, "No, Amy. I regret staying silent for so long. I regret letting you crush me. But this," I gestured around us, "this I will never regret." The hall erupted in whispers. Some looked horrified. Others nodded slowly, as if pieces of a puzzle had just clicked into place. And in that moment, justice wasn't just paperwork. It wasn't just signatures and legal terms. It was the sight of my mother, once untouchable once. Invincible, finally facing consequences. 2 weeks later, she left. The day was overcast, the sky gray and swollen. Movers carried her suitcases out of the house, their boots thudding against the steps. Adil barked orders, his face red with anger. Hira kept her sunglasses on, as if the world wasn't allowed to see her eyes. My mother walked through the living room one last time. She paused at Baba's photo on the wall, her expression unreadable. Then she turned to me. "You think you've won," she said quietly. I looked at her, my voice calm. "No, I just stopped losing." Her eyes narrowed. For a moment, I thought she might say something else. But she didn't. She picked up her purse and walked out the door. The silence she left behind was different this time. Not heavy, not suffocating. It was peaceful. For the first time in years, the house felt like it belonged to me. And justice, sweet and sharp, had finally been served. The day my mother left, I thought I would feel triumphant. That I would throw open the windows, let the sunlight pour in, and dance barefoot in the living room like a woman reborn. And in a way, I did feel lighter, like a stone I had carried on my back for decades had finally been set down. But the truth is, when the moving truck pulled away and the sound of its engine faded into the distance, the quiet that followed wasn't filled with celebration. It was filled with echoes. For so long, my life had been defined by the sound of her voice. Sharp, dismissive, commanding. A constant reminder that no matter what I did, I would never be enough. And now, with her gone, the silence in the house was almost too big. It pressed against me not in the suffocating way it once had, but in a way that forced me to acknowledge myself. Who was I without her shadow looming over me? The first morning I woke up in the house alone, I half expected to hear her calling my name, Layla. Make tea, Leela. Did you fold the laundry? Instead, there was only birdsong outside the window and the soft tick of the clock on the wall. I padded to the kitchen, made myself a cup of chai, and sat at the dining table, the same table where she had once humiliated me in front of everyone. The table where she had declared my best gift would be leaving. I ran my fingers over the wood, tracing invisible scars from years of meals and arguments. And I realized something. She had been wrong. The best gift wasn't me leaving. It was me staying. Staying in this house, in my father's house, and reclaiming it. Reclaiming myself. In the days that followed, I began to rebuild not the house, but myself. I cleared out Baba's study, but not in the way Adil and Hira had wanted. I didn't strip it bare and turn it into storage. Instead, I turned it into a studio. My studio, the walls that had once held his shelves of books, now held my canvases, my sketches, my designs. His desk became my workspace, his lamp my guiding light. And on the shelf above it all, I placed his journal, open always, to remind me that his voice lived in these pages and through me. Clients began to notice my focus shifting. I was more confident now, more willing to take risks. I pitched ideas boldly, stood firm on pricing, and even turned down projects that didn't value my work. For the first time, I wasn't apologizing for existing. I was creating on my own terms. And slowly, the money started to flow. Enough to renovate the kitchen, repaint the living room, and buy new curtains that fluttered happily in the breeze. I even bought myself a deep blue velvet sofa, the kind my mother would have called impractical. I sank into it every evening with a sigh of defiance and joy. Family gatherings became different. Adil and Hira kept their distance, their pride too bruised to face me often. But Samir came by more and more. He helped me hang frames, fix leaky taps, and once even brought groceries without me asking. One evening, as we sat on the porch sipping chai, he turned to me and said, "I'm sorry I didn't defend you all those years. I saw it, Leela. I just didn't want to admit it." I looked at him, really looked at him. He wasn't the golden boy or the baby of the family anymore. He was just my brother, flawed, but trying. "It's not too late," I told him. "Just don't become her. Don't ignore pain because it's easier." He nodded, eyes glistening. And in that moment, I felt a flicker of something I thought I had lost completely: hope. As for my mother, she moved in with Adil for a while. I heard stories from relatives how she complained about the smaller space, how she clashed with Hira, how she spoke bitterly about me at every chance she got. And yes, it hurt, because a part of me still wanted her love, still longed for the day she would say, "I'm proud of you, Layla." But that day never came. Instead, I gave myself the words she never did. When I finished a project, I told myself, "I'm proud of you." When I bought something with my own money, I whispered, "You did this." When I looked in the mirror, I said softly, "You are enough." It felt awkward at first, like speaking a foreign language, but slowly it became natural. And slowly, I started to believe it. The real turning point came on my next birthday. I didn't decorate the house with fairy lights for anyone else. I decorated it for me. I baked a cake not for an audience, but for myself. Chocolate, my favorite. I invited only the people who truly cared: Samir, cousin Sarah, a few close friends. As we sat around the dining table, laughter filling the room, I thought of that night a year ago, of the way my mother had stood here and told me the best gift would be leaving. I raised my glass and made a toast. To freedom, I said. To choosing ourselves even when others don't, and to knowing that sometimes the best gift is staying. Everyone clinked their glasses, and in that moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: belonging. Not because my mother had finally accepted me, but because I had accepted myself. Now, when I walk through the house, I don't hear her voice in every corner. I hear mine. I hear Baba's. I hear laughter from the people who matter. And when I sit at my desk in the studio, the sunlight pouring in, I no longer feel like a burden. I feel like a survivor, because I finally understand the lesson hidden in all the pain. Sometimes the family you're born into won't give you love. Sometimes they'll take it away. But that doesn't mean you're unlovable. It means you must learn to love yourself fiercely enough to survive. And I did. So when people ask me now, wasn't it cruel making your mother leave? I smile and answer, no. The cruelest thing would have been letting her stay and destroy me. I chose survival. I chose freedom. And in the end, that was the best gift I could give myself. Final reflection, I thought this story would end with revenge. With my mother's downfall. With justice served cold. And in a way, it did. But what I didn't expect was that beyond revenge, beyond justice, there was something greater waiting for me, peace. And that peace didn't come from watching her leave. It came from watching myself finally stay. And that was my story. If you've stayed with me until the end, thank you for listening. It means the world. If you've felt my pain and my victory, don't forget to hit that like button. Lets me know you're standing with me. Subscribe and turn on the bell so you never miss the next story of betrayal, revenge, and justice. And in the comments, tell me, what would you have done in my place? Your thoughts and experiences might even inspire the next story we tell here.